You already know the thrilling part of getting great isn't thrilling at all. The people who leap ahead aren't riding waves of inspiration. They're repeating small, almost boring loops with unusual honesty until the skill becomes unignorable. Here's the reframe that stops the self-sabotage. Time is just the inventory of minutes you can spend. Energy is the electricity that turns those minutes into learning. You don't need more hours. You need to stop leaking watts and route the power you already have through a narrow circuit that lights one bulb, not the whole neighborhood. Under the hood, initiation is a dopamine problem. Your brain releases a small anticipatory pulse when the next step is concrete, near, and winnable. Abstract goals like get better at piano underpay dopamine. Specific prompts like play the right-hand arpeggio at 72 beats per minute for 6 clean reps overpay it. That pulse doesn't make you great. It merely lowers the gate so you start. Alertness is largely a noradrenaline problem. Too little and you drift. Too much and your hands shake. You set the range by trimming uncertainty and shrinking the stakes, which is why small, crisp targets beat grand declarations. Deep focus rides on acetylcholine networks that mark the exact circuitry to strengthen. They tag this pattern right here when your attention is anchored and errors are informative rather than noisy. That is why the best practice feels like using a microscope rather than a floodlight. Most energy loss happens in the switches. Every time you jump from one subskill to another, your brain pays a reconfiguration tax. Rules, cues, and motor plans must reload. If your practice block hops between unrelated chunks, you burn watts on booting, not learning. Ambiguity siphons energy too. When you can't tell if a rep was good, you can't compute a prediction error, and no error means no update. Finally, delayed rewards make your circuitry stingy. If the only payoff lives months ahead, become exceptional. Your brain acts like a late-paying client and stops showing up. A few myths keep smart people busy and stuck, and each has a cleaner reframe. One myth says natural talent sets the ceiling, and practice just moves you faster toward it. The useful reframe is that your ceiling is dynamic. When you isolate a bottlenecked subcomponent and get precise feedback, you don't just approach a fixed limit. You lift it by rewiring the pathway that used to fail. Another myth glorifies grinding hours as if suffering alone produces gains. The honest reframe is that quality beats duration when quality is defined as high information errors inside a narrowly scoped task. You will improve more in 20 deliberate minutes on the weakest bar of the piece than in 2 wandering hours playing the whole song. A final myth treats boredom as evidence you're on the wrong path. The reframe is that boredom signals you have removed drama and are finally exposing the skill to consistent pressure. The job is not to chase stimulation, but to instrument the boredom so it constantly tells you whether you are getting better. If you want proof that the boring loop is the profitable loop, look at 2 robust bodies of work. Anders Ericsson and colleagues analyzed how elite performers trained and found that the differentiator was not raw time, but the design of practice. Clearly defined sub-goals, attention to specific weaknesses, immediate feedback, and adequate rest to consolidate. Gains clustered where attention and feedback were sharpest, not where effort felt most heroic. In a complementary line of research, Robert Bjork and others showed that desirable difficulties, spacing, interleaving related material, and testing yourself rather than rereading, feel harder in the moment, but produce learning that transfers and lasts. What looks less efficient by feel often turns out to be more efficient by outcome. The common denominator is precision. Define the skill slice, surface informative errors, and let the nervous system update while fresh rather than fatigued and unfocused. Tactics translate principles into today's minutes. The first lever is to start friction, so dopamine has something to grab. Pre-decide the exact first rep the day before. Not the topic, the rep. Record the opening sentence of the video with emphasis on the verb, 3 takes, and compare waveforms. Stage the environment so the tool you need is in reach, the settings are preloaded, and the reference is already open at the timestamp you will mimic. When you sit down, there is nothing to figure out. There is only a single obvious move. The second lever is context bundling to prevent energy leaks. Instead of sprinkling microtasks across the week, bind related actions into one ritualized block so cognitive settings don't have to reload. Group by cue and by objective fidelity. If you are training editing speed, Work through 10 similar transitions back to back with one constraint varied, like cut-on beat timing, rather than shuffling style, software, and audio all at once. The point is that your brain feels like it is driving on the same road, just slightly faster each lap. Run this as a single, no-drama sequence. Set a visible timer for 18 minutes and reserve 2 minutes for logging and reward. Write a one-sentence target a stranger could verify, such as deliver the tongue twister cleanly at 84 beats per minute with plosive control, 3 consecutive takes. Do one calibration attempt to surface the main error class. Then cycle short, information-dense reps of the same subcomponent, pausing briefly to label the specific error you felt or observed, and adjusting only one variable, tempo, articulation, hand position, or note entry, before the next rep. Tally successful criterion reps to aim for at least 3 in a row by the end. On the bell, mark finish with a visible closure ritual by saving the file with a version number, writing the winning parameter, and placing a green check on today's box. Finally, take the small pre-picked reward that breaks stake quickly so dopamine pairs with done, not with delay. If that sounds almost too plain, good. Plain is stable. Stability lets you measure. Measurement lets you improve. To keep the loop honest, define outcomes in ways that survive outside your head. Sounded better is a mood. 3 clean takes at 84 beats per minute with a consonant envelope that does not clip is evidence. On days when the target proves too hard, do not widen it. Scale it. Drop the tempo, shorten the bar, or reduce the degrees of freedom. The goal is to keep the error informative, not demoralizing. When you succeed, do not immediately move the goal so far that your nervous system loses the pattern. Nudge one parameter and go again. You are building a staircase, not attempting a single heroic jump you will avoid tomorrow. There is a common worry that deliberate practice kills creativity by narrowing attention to mechanics. The reality is the opposite. Mechanics are the cost of admission for reliable expression. When your baseline is automated, you free attention to compose, improvise, or tell the story your audience actually hears. The greats do not practice to become robots. They practice to remove friction so more of their taste survives. The trip from brain to world. If you want that freedom, outlaw variety for variety's sake during the session and invite it back during exploration time. You can alternate days or split a block, but don't mix modes mid-rep. It confuses the learning signal and drains the battery. Facing weakness directly can feel like a grind, so make the container humane and repeatable. Keep sessions short enough that you leave while still curious. Pair high information attempts with brief breaks and longer recoveries after several blocks, so the changes have time to consolidate. Ericsson's violinists did not win by suffering more. They won by stopping when the quality would have dropped and by returning when the brain could write the update into the system. You are not living in a pressure cooker. You are visiting, extracting value, and leaving before fatigue turns precision into noise. Now make today count. Pick one skill slice that matters for the kind of excellence you care about, not the one that flatters you. Turn it into a criterion you can show someone else. Set up the first rep the night before or right now if you are listening in the afternoon. When the session ends, ensure there exists a visible artifact and a one-line note that says what changed. Do this 5 days in a row, and you will feel a momentum that has nothing to do with motivation and everything to do with physics. Reduced friction, conserved energy, repeated updates. If this was useful, run the 20-minute loop once today and tell me in one sentence what you targeted and whether you hit 3 consecutive criterion reps. If you want more protocols like this, you can subscribe or share this with a friend who is stuck at trying harder and needs a smaller, sharper plan.